to the, January 12th Advisory Parks Board meeting. Sorry you guys got me. Amy's not here tonight, so you guys are going to have to deal with me and yell at me if I get stuff wrong, all right? Just Chad will tell me, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. We'll figure it out along the way. Everybody remember, please silence your phones during the meeting, and let's take roll.
Davis. Millette.
Here.
Fulton.
Here.
Here. Metz.
Here.
Franz.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Hudak. Here. We have a quorum.
All right, next up, let's approve the minutes from last meeting, which was on November 10th.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Fulton and second by Herman.
Thank you. All right, public statements part. Is anybody here for public statements? Does not look like it, so let's move on to the next. We have here, we're going to announce some retirements, and we're going to introduce Anna Canizzo, the Director of Cultural and Enrichment Services. So Chad's going to tell us a little bit about the retirements.
Yes. So, well, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome. 2026, a lot of good things happened back in 2025, but wanted to announce a couple items taking place here. As we know, Ray Maurer, our former Parks Director, retired back on December 12th, and things have been moving forward with the restructuring of our department and things happening here with the community and how we're going to be functioning. And we had some additional retirements taking place here. But if I look back a little bit with the history over the 16 years that Ray had served this community and the projects that we were able to accomplish as a group and effort and team, I can't go through the list because there was an immense amount I think our organization took on and was very successful in providing to this community quality of life assets that would hopefully run into the future, and the planning and the steps that took place. And Ray will be missed and well acknowledged for his time and his efforts here and what he did for this community, well noted. So we will miss him at those areas and his leadership in the areas that he helped and drive into this community. Also, we have some retirements of some long-standing employees with our team. Carrie Luft, trades technician, and Bob Stein, trades technician, that are both retiring here this coming Friday, the 16th of January. Respectively, they have 35 years of service with the city here going forward, from the Streets Division to Parks Department, and I think of all the projects that they've been a part of in their past 10 to 13 years with our department, or 13 years with both of them here in our department, and projects that we took place, and some of the operational items that they've tackled to deal with between the aquatic center, zoo projects that have been out there, playground installations, gradings, rebuilding, a lot of different stuff, a lot of talent and expertise with those two gentlemen too going forward. So hopefully we'll have some recruitments or be able to recruit positions going forward to continue with those services at a high level there. And last but not least, definitely want to introduce Anna Canizzo, our Cultural and Enrichment Services Director, through our restructuring plan to come through. And Anna's here tonight and hopefully give a brief introduction for you. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Chad. I echo your sentiments about Ray. He was a great colleague to work with. I really enjoyed working with him on a number of projects alongside the museum, and I look forward to building on all the wonderful work that he's done with everyone here. My name is Anna Canizzo. I have been the museum director since 2024, but I've been with the city of Oshkosh and at the city, the public museum since 2014 in a variety of roles. I started off as the curator of collections and then moved on to the assistant director, chief curator, and then the director. So I occupied a number of roles there. My background is I have a master's in anthropology and with an emphasis on archaeology, which was always interesting with the archaeological excavations that recently happened. I actually interned with the CRM and know some of the archaeologists associated with that project, so it kind of comes full circle. Yeah, so I'm really excited to take on this new role. Really excited to work with everybody to continue to grow these amazing cultural assets we have here at the city, and at the same time reinforce how important they are to the community. So yeah, that's me. But if anybody has any questions or like to know a little bit more, I don't want to read my whole resume. Yeah, it's wonderful to meet you all.
Thank you, Anna. So,
Thanks,
I-
Anna.
Just a couple questions. I think we've met, because I was on city council for 10 years. And now I've been on the Parks Board, well, on and off for 10 years. And I worked 10 years part-time for the county parks. I guess my question, and maybe it's kind of blindsiding you, and that's maybe not fair, but with these changes, how does this fit into the strategic plan of the city of Oshkosh? Putting all these, umbrellas under one director, and you have no park and rec background whatsoever.
Right.
And we have 15-plus parks in the city. So how do you say to the citizens of Oshkosh that our park and rec is going to be very good?
Well, I think that a number of things happened to kind of be a catalyst for this reorganization. I think Michelle reviewed some of them with you all. I know budget was part of it. I think another component was the fund development part of that. I think some of the challenges, the quality of life, and I'm speaking also from the museum side of that too, because we're under the quality of life assets. So we all share that same sort of umbrella in a way between the museum, the library, the parks department, and what that encompassed with the senior center. Some things that we struggle with when we go through challenging budget times is sustainability. I mean, we're not seen as critical services, but we're incredibly important to the community. So I think part of the rationale too, to kind of bring this all under one umbrella department with these divisions, is to reinforce our viability and sustainability. So that's why we're creating the fund development component of that. I don't know if you folks watched the CIP. I know Jacob did. But I mean, if you saw what was redlined on there, I mean, the city has to produce clean water, has to have good streets, that, has to have safety and security. It doesn't always need to have these other components, so they're often looked at for the potential cut in services. So I think one of my big goals is to try to shore up sustainability for these areas of quality of life, because they're incredibly important to the community. We don't want them to go away. We don't want to cut what we offer the community. In fact, we want to enhance it. So I think part of what we want to do is find ways for grant writing, and I know a lot of this we do, but try to come together, be kind of stronger together, and have more partnerships and collaborations. Find efficiency where there's a particular grant that if we write for, that the library is a part of, the museum's a part of, the parks, I mean, any kind of compilation, it makes it a stronger application. It makes it a more investable project. So I think that's a key component of why the rationale of kind of bringing that under. So that's going to be a big focus of mine. It's not to change parks or the library or the museum. I think we all have to fundamentally produce the services that we do. The library is going to be the library, the museum has to be the museum, and the parks have to provide those recreational and cultural assets for the community. But how can we strengthen them? How can we do the things that we normally do at the fundamental level, but at the same time look for creative ways to enhance those services we provide to the community? Because the great unifying thing is we are passionate public servants, and we want to provide the best services we can to the community and to the public. So I think that's our North Star, is how we serve the community. You're right, I don't have a parks background, I don't have a library background or senior services, and that's why that each one of these areas will still retain kind of an administrator or a manager. So Chad is still, a very active part of the leadership team. The library, same. I'm still going to act as the main administrator for the museum, but I'm going to be working together with everybody to try to shore up how how we provide these services and how we can make them better and more sustainable. I think that's a big key part. But when it looks like, when we're talking about the strategic plan, for example, again, most of my experience is museums, obviously. Part of the core documents that we have to have is our own strategic plan. Just the city's strategic plan isn't just enough. So each department, as needed, can still have its own strategic plan, but we'll have to come together and find some areas where we can really focus on together. And those might be kind of broad, broad objectives or goals. We'll be entering into a new strategic plan round for the next couple of years in the near future. But the strategic plan initiatives that are still ongoing for this year, we're just going to keep moving forward on those. We don't want to deviate from what we had planned to do. But if opportunities arise, which some have, that we are talking about how we can work together to do that, we want to seize them because of the services that they can provide our community. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
it's just, it's going to be different because it's a different structure of what most communities are used to having.
Yeah, we'll be able to do some innovative things. And I know I was looking at benchmarks for other potential communities that do these types of umbrella departments, and I found more of like arts and culture. I think the closest I found was Boston. So Oshkosh is on the forefront of doing some innovative things in this area. And I look at it too as like creating bridges. How can I create bridges for the museum and what we do to be relevant to the parks and the library and senior services? And we've done some cross collaboration on those types of projects. But I'll be looking for us all to work together. It's not a pre-baked plan. Some of it will kind of unfurl as it goes along. But what I do know is that we'll work together to achieve the most successful outcomes possible to serve the public. And so I'm really excited to work with Chad and everybody at the city to accomplish that. So I really look at it from a team perspective.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on to new business. Update on city manager's reorganizational plan and for the cultural and enrichment services department.
Well, I think Anna did a really good job of
I know,
kind of
it's like-
explaining the question
We
to
might covered that.
for Mr. Herman there, so that was good. But I think the one thing to emphasize in regards to a lot of the structuring into is the collaboration and teamwork effort that we all got to pull together to work with and doing things. And I think when Anna and I talked about this too, this year is going to be a year of slow change and building. And I wouldn't call it change, but building to what we're going to and what we're trying to, how we're going to serve and collaborate amongst our areas to make it more beneficial in the long run. So put it this way, I think we all got to be aware of how our existing structures all work in our current areas and how they pull together the different time frames, because we all move at different times, at different speeds, at different areas going on between projects, operational items, and all that. And it'll be exciting there. And I think the other big part too is how the operations will intertwine with the public works division or the operations area. That way, with our landscape services, park services that we have out there too for some of the maintenance stuff. And that's where I feel I'm a big part in that, helping that bridge to keep that information flowing and how we're going to function and work as a group to keep those services up at a high level at that end. We definitely don't want to go backwards, and that's the biggest thing, and want to keep building to what we can do out here. This community deserves that, and we're here to help make sure that goes through in a high end from that end. So it'll be exciting. But I think Anna did a great job of explaining where we're at and how we're going from that perspective. But if there's any other questions we could entertain together, that's what we'd definitely do from that end. So
Mine is probably a little deeper dive rather than that. We kind of got the 5,000-foot view of, and I understand from that fundraising and the funding perspective, a lot of times we're all fishing from the same ponds, so to speak, here in this community. So, prioritizing where those funds go is going to be, interesting for you to deal with. But my concerns were a little bit further down, that I saw, you know, what the organizational chart looks higher up, but from operation level on down, it just it's not very defined, and I hope that maybe it is. But my question is my understanding is the technicians, the people carrying out the maintenance work for the Parks Department are going to be moved to the Department of Public Works. Is that correct?
That's how the operational flow, yes, yes.
Because I could very easily see things saying there that, you know, that all those folks, the org chart builds out underneath the, whatever, won't be, like, whatever Chad's title is going to be. It's not, no longer a department, I'm assuming a division, but there's also divisions within, you know, the Parks Department right now. So, you know, what's in a title and how all those folks go. It's just a matter of communication, and my experience is fire department and everything, so it's chain of command, and a key part of making things functional is that concept of one person has one boss. Otherwise, there's conflict, and that conflict causes efficiency to erode and things to not get carried out and done. But what I don't quite understand is how the work of the parks to ensure that that continues to be done in an efficient manner, and that it doesn't get lost going up and down through the chain of command. It's got to go through multiple steps and multiple people back up and over to another department and back down again to be carried out. And those are where my questions primarily lie. That you know, that obviously there's going to be work that needs to be done, but it's being carried out by a completely separate department. Chad's going to be and you also in an unfortunate place of all the responsibility at no direct authority over the folks to carry that out. So how is what's been designed and developed organizationally to ensure that those issues are dealt with or looked at?
So we're trying to retain as much consistency and continuity as we can during these changes, and not all of them have, like, not all the pieces on the board have been put into place yet. So in the meantime, parks like Travis's area is still kind of under parks, like that parks that hasn't been split out yet.
Okay.
I know that they're still hiring for that. I know Public Works has kind of been changed as well, and they're still working on hiring the new leadership before they start kind of working their way down. I don't mean down, but you know, just kind of letting the rest of the pieces, because again, we don't want any services to lapse. So we're kind of keeping the ship steady and keeping things in place as much as possible until those changes are made. I can say, from my experience, when the maintenance department was restructured, so at the museum, for example, we had a maintenance technician, and then that was put under the facilities. And so I'm no longer that person's supervisor, and I know that that maintenance technician is now shared with like the museum and parks. It takes some time to develop and get used to the new structure. It took us time to get used to that, but I can say that the work gets done. You just have to set up new communication protocols as those things go into place, because they're not there just yet. In the meantime, when it comes to the park services and operations maintenance, for example, the maintenance part of, I mean, that's under a facility, so that's under a different department. That'll be also moved under Public Works, but for now, it's still structured how it is within facilities.
So what facility gets priority? Because when I worked for the parks, county parks, they went through the same thing, and the expo center didn't have any employees all of a sudden, and there was events going on at the expo center, there's nobody there to get the facility ready, because you're all working in the parks.
Well,
And so, do we have somebody designated for the Leach Amphitheater? Do we have somebody designated for Lake Shore Park when there's events there that stuff gets done? Or is the street department got them out doing something else?
I don't have the answers to.
I'm just saying that's the
No,
concern
yeah.
I have, because I think you got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, to his direction, who is the authority person that says, geez, the Reach Diamonds needs to get work done today? Oh, no, they're assigned out doing something else, the street department. I mean, when you don't have your own employees anymore, which it sounds like we don't, Parks no longer has park designated employees. They're not gonna be parks caretakers. They're not gonna be park, just the 35 years we just lost of guys making signs and that. Who's making the signs? Is the street department gonna make the signs?
Those
For the
moves
parks?
haven't occurred.
Well, it's already February, just about February.
Understood,
Park
yeah.
opens in April.
But what I'm saying is, until those moves occur, it's going to be operations as normal. So Chad is still working with those individuals to make sure those services are rendered until it's time for them to move.
I just see
under the public
budgets
works.
going like the county has over the years. The smallest departments get the least amount of money and don't have the workers, don't have the staff, and the facilities just go
Yeah.
to pot. And we have about 15 plus parks. We have 2 major parks with a lot of remodeling being done at both of them over the years. And the Reach Diamonds and Miller's Bay, Boat Lane, all that is a major undertaking. Is it gonna get thrown into where? Is it gonna get done? Do we have anybody to do the work? I mean, it'll be contracted out work, mostly, especially for the bathrooms and concession stand and that type of stuff, but do we have the people to cut the grass? I mean, we get enough complaints as it is that the grass is way too high in the parks because we don't have enough people or it's too wet. Who's gonna fight to make sure that the roads in the park get redone? I mean, it took how many years to get them done this time, And so I'm really concerned that our park department's gonna be on the bottom of the pecking order and our facilities are gonna go downhill, and I hate to see that.
I think those are good comments to make right now, but I think that's where I got to stand up for where I believe we can go. And I think it comes through good communication. I would hope that my experience and my passion for where we're at in the parks world can help get that information out to the proper people and how we go through that stuff and have our organized plans to keep things going in the right direction with the teams that we have and the credible people that understand our area. And I think as people transition and learn different roles and expectations when they work in a collaborative group, I can definitely see, our teams being a very good leader in that area. And I'll use for example of how well, Travis's and our teams work together for doing different things when we got to deal with facility stuff. And I think of Terry Smith's group, of how they've worked with us as, in facilities, as Anna mentioned too. We just got to put everything out on that groundwork to say, here's what we have, here are our values, this is what we got to get through and how we're going to do this. Now, how are we going to be successful? That's where we get in line to help make that flow. And we have to do our darndest to make sure that happens in the most effective way possible and efficient way to go from. I think putting people to their strengths is a big part in how we're successful, and we have good leaders or good team members that can fulfill a lot of areas, and hopefully giving them some discretion of how they can be successful too, and taking lead into different areas will be a big part. If I was to throw an example, as you did before, Steve, is just with athletic fields. We have a good person in line there to go through. Hopefully other people can learn and train from them to understand how this works through the scheduling end of it, or taking care of the lakeshore facility down there. We have good people in line to work with. Let's keep that rolling, and how can we make that all come together? So just a couple small examples, but I think we have a great resource of individuals and team members to help bridge that, and it's high-end communication and being thorough and working together. And I think we'll be very successful going that direction, but it's going to take a little bit, and people got to understand what we do and how we do it from that end. So by no means do we want to let this community down in that area, and that's our job to be a big part of that end. Can appreciate those concerns, and I think we are going through that, as we do know that there's, as the saying goes, is in our areas, you got to learn to do more with less, and how can you make that happen? And we are in that realm, and we got to figure that out too as a group in doing that. And I hope other team members within our organizations are taking that on too and thinking, because it is a big part of why we're here, to serve this community and at a high level. So, and we'll keep doing that. So.
And I understand that some, I think, a few years ago, you brought a plumber on because that was assigned to the Parks Department, but they did work in other areas of the city. There's more than parks buildings that have plumbing facilities and things like that, you know, that there's overlap from department that you may not necessarily be able to have enough work for a whole position for something like that, and they're shared. There's some of that where there's overlap, but on the just down and dirty day-to-day maintenance side of the things, that work doesn't go away. That work just needs to be done, and people need to be assigned to that. My concern is that people being drawn off of that day-to-day maintenance being more project-oriented versus maintenance-oriented, you know, to make sure that those are the things that I think need to be really watched out for in all of this, and that difficult task you're gonna have of fighting for what, as Steve put it, what are the priorities, and, you know, and priorities go into the, you know, maybe, you know, into the beholder of who has that staff ultimately has that saying, you know, not that we don't know who that person is yet. That's going to be a difficult task, but to make sure that's maintained.
And at a fundamental level, we have to provide those services to the community. And so I think that is, from what my understanding from the meetings I've been in and conversations, that is understood. Because I had, you know, even before this was released and I had to sort of convey just on the museum side of things, you know, I'd say at a fundamental level, this is what we need to get done. You know, we need this to, the museum's got to be clean for the public. You know, like our grounds have to be kept. We do get phone calls about that. You know, things like that. And so that was all conveyed, and you know, I can speak from my conversations on behalf of the museum. I can't speak to what Ray conveyed, but that was well understood that we can't just let that stuff go to the wayside while we're figuring that out. We need to keep, those need to stay consistent. But at a granular level, when it comes to personnel, some of that's getting worked out. I can say from my experience when they reorganized the maintenance department, we had to, it took some getting used to. It changed some of our operations at the museum, for example, because our maintenance technician at the time did other things at the museum. Now we're no longer doing, but we were agile and we're able to adapt to that, and it was nothing we couldn't take on. So I think there's going to be some of that here, but some of the concerns expressed, I think that we understand that at a fundamental level, you know, we need to provide those services to the community. We can't let those fall back. I mean, that is an expectation we have to meet. So, but I appreciate those concerns. I like to take those notes too. That way I can voice some of those. And even just speaking of some of the wonderful programs that Travis has developed, we don't want those to go anywhere either. I was pretty excited about the tree tour that you were developing. So I mean, things like that I think are really exciting opportunities. You know, I don't want to see go away. In fact, I don't want to do more with less. I want more for all of them, more for this area. I think quality of life is incredibly important, and these assets are incredibly important to the civic vitality that is in this community. So that's what I will be endeavoring to do. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, the Parks Department has been asked to do a lot more over the years, and even beyond parks, so many things that we don't know, the trail system, cul-de-sacs, on and on, all of these things that aren't technically parks that were added into it. So it really wasn't a matter of they had less work, they've had more and have had to adapt to that. So that's why it's like, boy, there's really not a whole lot of room for those folks to get shared and do something else besides what they're already doing.
And we can also discover where are those gaps that are not being filled, that are not providing the best area of services. So if some areas we can pull back, I mean, it's kind of like there might be areas to redistribute or think more creatively, cross-train, or, you know, like, oh, wow, we didn't realize it, but we need some additional staffing here because these areas, whether it's parks or the museum, we need more here. And so some of that, you know, might be better recognized through this reorganization as well. So, you know, we just want to give the resources to provide these services to the community. So stay tuned.
Yep.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Always. The reorganizations always. Stay tuned.
Yes.
More to come. Thank you.
Super.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Nope. So when change comes along, there's always worry, concern about it, about things and how they're gonna turn out and how everything happens, and I've been through change a couple times at work. I think what it deals with is the leadership team that Chad was talking about. If they work collaboratively with each other and the goal is what's best for the city, and they work collaboratively on what is best for the city, those are usually things where you can really excel, and the whole city can excel as a group together instead of this department against this department, right? So that's usually where you see success in that. So a lot of it honestly goes on your shoulders, right? Because you guys all have to work collaboratively to make sure everything gets done that needs to get done in the city. But if you have open conversation, are able to share with each other and able to make sure everything's prioritized the way it should be, it should work. When you worry about red tape and stuff, I've never had to deal with red tape, for where I've worked at. But I know that what comes up in governments, but that's the biggest thing, just working collaboratively and making sure what's best for the city is what's getting done. So that's all I had to say.
And this is not going to be a project that comes without challenges or hurdles or whatnot, because it's citywide. It's spanning across multiple departments. But I truly believe this reorganization is what's best to maintain city services in the long run and make them more financially sustainable as well as staff sustainable. We're having to do more with less in terms of staff as well, in addition to finances. So whatever we can do to make sure as a committee and as a council and as a city that we can deliver these things to the community, that's the big picture. That's priority number one. So I'm all for knocking down silos. I'm all for resource sharing where we can and streamlining. So as long as everything gets done that needs to get done, that citizens have clean parks, they have nice parks, they have developed parks, that there's no decline in quality of service, this should work. So I'm on board.
I will fortify my shoulders for all of it to sit on. But I have to say I'm really excited to work so collaboratively with everybody across the quality of life area, and everybody's been so wonderful. I've moved into as a department head. I've really enjoyed working with everybody and trying to find collaborative ways. So I think this just reinforces more reason to do that, and it's a really exciting time to rethink some things and engage passionately in the work that we do. So I'm really excited about it.
All right, thank you. Good job tonight, Chad.
So,
Yeah, go team.
yeah.
He's very, you can tell Chad's behind it, so. All right, back to new business. We have a presentation by Emily Rock. She's the Assistant Museum Director and Chief Curator on Lakeshore Historical Signs.
So speaking of collaborations, thank you for having me speak tonight. Again, I'm Emily Rock, the Assistant Director and Chief Curator at the Oshkosh Public Museum. So almost a year ago, Ray contacted us at the museum with an idea for a project. So to expand on the interpretive signage in Lakeshore Park, to add some signs around the park for people walking and enjoying the park. So kind of similar to the Riverwalk signs, the Riverwalk signs that have historic photos and information about different topics. So we got together and kind of whittled down what are the topics that they wanted discussed in the park that kind of made sense for Lakeshore Park's location and history. And so there were 5 topics that we came up with. One being the kind of the larger history of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. The park, as we know from the archaeological surveys, is the ancestral lands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk So that would be the theme of one sign. And then leading on to that, people are very interested in the Lakeshore Park archaeological excavations. So that would be the theme of another sign. And then the third one is called a glacial landscape, but that ancient glacial, like, ecological history of the area. And then a sign about the history of course, Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course. And then a sign about kind of the waterways and how it's used, especially for the lumber industry, historically speaking. So my presentation is just about the content of these signs, the words and the images, which I'll be showing you. The design, Ray and other staff had suggested they be based on the Riverwalk interpretive signage. So that, as far as I know, is the plan. So, all right. So I know this looks like a chunk. So I'll read it out for you. Each sign, we try to stick to a certain word count and like reading level and things like that, so to be accessible to everyone. So I'll read it out. So, ancestral lands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk. What is now Lakeshore Park had long been the home of the native people of Wisconsin. The ancestors of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk lived in a village on the banks of Lake Butamore at least 2,500 years ago. Approximately 1000 BCE to 1000 CE is known to archaeologists as the Woodland period. Native people during this era began settling in more permanent villages, but often moved seasonally. They made pottery and traded goods over long distances. Woodland people planted corn, beans, squash, tobacco, and sunflowers. They hunted deer, rabbit, and waterfowl using bows and arrows. The arrival of Europeans changed everything for Native people. In the 1600s, Native people began trading furs and pelts for European goods like glass beads, firearms, and copper pots. The Menominee and Ho-Chunk continued to inhabit the land that is now Lakeshore Park until about 1800 due to an increase in American and European settlers to the area. This land was ceded to the United States in the 1836 Treaty of Cedars. This treaty moved the Menominee and Ho-Chunk seats of government to reservation lands in other parts of Wisconsin and Nebraska. Today, the Menominee and Ho-Chunk continue to live in Wisconsin as sovereign nations. Many have embraced traditional practices, languages, and arts to pass on their cultural heritage to new generations. So that would be the text on this sign. And then I have two images that would be included on the signage, and they both have captions. So the one on the left shows Menominee women and girls at Kashina around 1912. And then the one on the right shows a Menominee family standing in front of their wigwam on the Menominee Reservation in Kashina around 1913. They're holding baskets and other items they made to sell to tourists. Selling art was a way to make a livelihood and also continued cultural craft traditions. So then the next sign is called Lakeshore Park Archaeological Excavations. In spring of 2018, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Cultural Resource Management conducted an archaeological excavation of Lakeshore Park. Prehistoric artifacts were found during a 2017 archaeological survey after the Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course closed. It is a requirement to do archaeological investigations before land is developed. This excavation work includes removing the top portion of the soil. Then archaeologists dig sample pits in regular intervals throughout the site. Archaeologists look for artifacts like pieces of pots, projectile points, and evidence of dwellings and fire pits. All the recovered items are studied and a report is made about the site. UWM-CRM determined that the Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course was a village and burial site. Ancestors of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk lived on the southeastern shore of Lake Butamore about 2,500 years ago. Between 500 BC and 1200 CE, groups of people lived here seasonally during the late spring and early fall. This is typical of the Lake Winnebago region, where Native people lived close to the water. The Menominee and Ho-Chunk were removed from these ancestral lands by the U.S. government in the 1800s, and today these nations have reservation land in Wisconsin. So then these are the Lakeshore Park archaeological excavations images that would be on the on this particular sign. So the one on the left shows a UWM CRM archaeologist records findings during the 2018 excavation. And then the other shows an excavator digs out the top layer of soil on a putting green in April of 2018. Then the next one is called a glacial landscape. So starting about 2.5 million years ago, the Laurentide ice sheet, which covered millions of miles of what is now Canada and the northern United States, began advancing and retreating as the Earth's climate cooled and warmed. Its last advance was about 100,000 years ago. The glaciers could be up to 2 miles thick. The ice sheet covered what is now northern and northeastern Wisconsin about 31,000 years ago. Over the next 1,500 years, the advancing and retreating ice and its meltwater sculpted the landscape, creating lakes, moraines, outcrops, and other landforms, including the Great Lakes, Wisconsin Dells, Fox River, Lake Winnebago, and Lake Butamore. These waterways and terrain created by the glaciers were full of natural resources that made it an ideal place for people to live. People arrived when the glaciers left Wisconsin for the last time about 10,000 years ago. The climate was still cooler and wetter than it is today. During this time, Native people lived in small groups, moving seasonally. They used stone tools to hunt and fish. They harvested nut, fruit, and wild rice that grew in the wetlands. Some groups developed copper tools. And then the accompanying images would be this map on the left, showing that the Laurentide ice sheet. And then on the right, this is an image of a piece of copper from the museum's collection. It's called float copper. They're pieces of raw mineral that have been dislodged from rock and dragged to a new location by glaciers. A lot of float copper was deposited in Upper Michigan thousands of years ago, and Native people used this copper to make tools like knives and projectile points. All right. And then, of course, the one about Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course. I just thought, do I need to read these aloud? I was reading them aloud for, the record. I don't know. Do I need to? No. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. All right.
Okay.
So this one, this is my first time. So anyway, this one's about the history of the Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course. Going through kind of what the land was before it became Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course, and then how that transition happened, and of course, talking about Hank Detlef, and a little bit more about him himself and all of his contributions to the golf course, and his personal accomplishments in golf.
If I can add, I think we should be adding some more names to that. There are a lot more people than Hank Detlef that had a lot to do with Lakeshore Golf Course in the early days of it. There's
Like the founders you're talking about? at
yeah,
that
some of
point?
that, and there's I can't think of their names now off the top of my head, but there's been a lot of people that in the 50s, 60s, 70s that kept that golf course together. And I think that just focusing on the beginner of the facility, because I was one that was against selling it to Oshkosh Corp., I'll be very honest. So I have a lot of history of that golf course, and I think there are some families that would be slighted if we don't include them. And Chad, I think there's a guy that used to work out there that works at Chaska, I think it is, who's been pushing hard for plaques and stuff. And there's a lot more names that should be added to that than just Hank Detlef.
Okay, that's good to know. I was
And I don't
not
know if it
aware.
would make any sense to have a subplat of some of the past city champions that were, Oshkosh for years and years had a city-wide golf championship. And there were hundreds of people that played in that tournament over the years. And I just think that that's not enough to recognize the history of that golf course.
I think that's one thing. I think, talk with Anna and Emily about too here in the long run, if it comes down to a potential display that ever happens at the museum to show a little bit more of that. We have a lot of the archive stuff from the
Yep.
Lakeshore yet. in our areas to work from, and we can get through and see how that could.
And maybe
forward or
that's
something.
not where the plaque, maybe it doesn't need to be on that plaque, and maybe that's another good thing, is to actually have a formal
Like recognition. or
recognition, or, like you bring in exhibits. I think today I drove by and it looked like you were unloading some stuff up into the museum and stuff. So, I mean, I think just, over the years, we've had specific exhibits at the museum of some of the history of Oshkosh, and I think we should really look at putting together a municipal golf course, because there were a lot of citizens of Oshkosh that were very disappointed with the sale of the golf course, because the average Joe was what that golf course was all about. I think we should still recognize that.
I think just one comment there, Steve, is just, like I said, a recognition of the decade.
Yep.
People, since its origin, is kind of neat to understand in doing that. So it's something
Sure.
noted.
I mean, and if there are more, I guess I only used the images we had available from the museum's collection. So if there are other images that parks might have of some of these other folks or from different decades and things like that, then we could certainly, if it's in the budget, to add a second one about the golf course with some more information about the other decades. Obviously, this is a 200-word, it can't fit
We can
everything.
But
Yeah, certainly we can.
we have 70 acres of land out there that we could put a couple different locations with information about, cultural and.
Yeah, no, and yeah, that's what we tried to do with kind of these different signages of what is of interest to folks, and but if there is, we can go back and chat and see if there's a budget for a sixth one, and we can always add that in and find some additional images. And actually, I have some. So here are some images. So there's the first clubhouse of Hank Detlef, Lakeshore Golf Course, hole 12, as seen in 71, and then a scorecard from mid-century, and then the Laguna and Canal at the third and fourth holes, as it looked in 1971. So, if there are other images from other decades, or even a more, the 90s or something, that
'cause
people
golf
in
course
living
was
memory would.
Golf course was closed, I think, in the early 90s and reconfigured, and a bunch more ponds were put in, and a new clubhouse was built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of history to condense there, so
Yep.
perhaps we can discuss another sign. All right, and then I showed you those. Okay, and then the last sign is just called Working Waterways, and it's about the lumber industry, Sawdust City. So just a little background about kind of the lumber industry, and just the sheer number of sawmills, and then and all the factories making wood products using this raw timber that would be floated down the Wolf River. And so then it also talks a little bit about kind of the process of harvesting the logs and floating them downriver, which was a very laborious process. So some images. These are log rafts. So basically they would put a bunch of logs together to float them in bunches, essentially. And then the next one, just all the logs piled up in front of the Oshkosh Logging Tool Company. Later became the Leach. And then just showing some of the work that goes into it, working on the Fox River near the Payne, near Riverside Cemetery. I will have to get a better image of it, but I can also include an image of one of the pike ends from the museum's collection as well, if that would help kind of make it more real for folks. People like seeing things, you know, pictures of artifacts as well. So, yeah. So that is, whoops, went too far. So that's it for me. This map just shows some potential locations for where these signs would go. Did you want to speak to that, Tyler?
Yeah, for those if they haven't seen this photo, Ray and I originally had just mapped out some potential sites for those signs, depending on the area. Sort of like the topics or signs centered on like the golf history versus the glacial sign is those areas that are more central to those topics or themes. Like for instance, the industry of the pile sign hopefully will orientate it to like face the piles, so when the residents are looking at this, they can just look up across the river, boom, there the piles are, and such. But if this project goes forward and we start to go towards actual installation, we'll refine this further as depending on your feedback and such.
All right. Any other, comments or questions?
A comment or question, the sign with the excavations on it, which I was just waiting to see if there would have been a picture of some of the items that were artifacts that were discovered, you know, or is it pieces that are difficult to identify? It would just be kind of neat. What did you find there?
Right.
You know, I would almost rather see that than this is how they looked for it, but what did you find? You know, what's under the ground here?
Yeah,
What's
what
in this
determined
area?
it is
I
a
think that would be
village.
pretty neat.
So, I definitely understand wanting to see the things. Because it was also a burial site, it would not be appropriate to share images of most of the things that were found there. Now, there might be some pieces, but they might be like tiny potsherds or Anna can speak to more of this. So we do hold this collection. It was transferred to us, and that we hold in the museum's collection. So we could get some images of the... Anna can speak to a little bit more of this, actually, since her background's in archaeology.
Yeah, also, yes, we do, the museum is stewarding the material from the site. It has not been fully cataloged, meaning each individual piece, because, I mean, there are things like bags of
Fur, or
and
nails,
glass pieces, and because there's a variety of layers it has gone through. There also has been some updates to some federal laws too that govern what types of images, because there were some ancestors that were laid to rest there. So the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, as well as the Archaeological Resources Protection Act, we would just need to make sure that was compliant or get permission from the tribal nations to share those images. So we just have to be selective about it. However, what we could do is also potentially share images of the types of of pottery. You know what I mean? If you want to see a whole pot, for example, versus the piece, and you're like, great, what is that? Doesn't give me the image of what it looked like. We certainly have reference images from other collections, not necessarily from this site, but like, this is the type of pottery that would have been found with similar, not decoration, but like, you know, corded ware or whatnot. We could give like or these are the types of projectile points that would have been found. That type of
That's
stuff.
more of what I was thinking
reference
of.
it.
Like arrowheads, tools, pottery, those types of, certainly nothing.
Oh, no, it's more of because of where they were found that they could potentially be associated with a burial. So it's getting into a...
We just want to make sure.
we just want to make sure that we're being sensitive. So we could that's a good good note to have. We can absolutely find some images of actual items, whether they are from that site or kind of shards of pot similar to this were found. From this period were found here. So yeah, absolutely, I can make a note of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
These types of points with these types of notches and, or knives. I mean, even just for like the museum display, we have representative images, pieces on display to represent a period of time. So we could certainly find images that way the visitor can sort of connect with that and say, oh, these are the types of vessels that they made, or with the copper, for example, these are the types of tools they would have made out of that, or pick a thing. So we could probably find some reference images of things that we wouldn't have to be too worried about. NAGPRA or just can give representative image. Also, I don't think we got any full, there were no
full pieces that were found.
Fragmented.
Everything's fragments.
Finding representative images that would give a sense of what those types of artifacts look like would probably connect better interpretively with the visitor. But we just want to make sure we're compliant with these, because the law was updated it went into effect in 2024. So we're working through that at the museum ourselves. So, yeah.
Good to know. I'll make a note of that, and along with the potential other sign for the golf course history.
Well, thank you, Emily. Also, thank Tyler for you guys and your efforts for putting this together and working with this. So thank you.
Thanks is due to Emily and her fantastic team.
All right, thank you. So next we're on to old business. Do we have any business? Doesn't look like it. So let's move on to staff reports. We'll start with our Parks and Services and Event Manager, Chad Hellman.
Thank you. A couple things for you here. Last year, we had started with the Reitz Ball Field concession restroom construction project. If you remember in our CIP, there was $500,000 allocated towards this project to work from, and we were working on some design services with a local architect here, and trying to put those together. I'm hoping to come back with a final concept for you guys in February. Something's got delayed a little bit here through the changes, but hopefully have that together for something to review, so we can start with the process with hopefully construction on something of this nature later this year, August, September, after the season's concluded from that end. So, but that's an exciting project taking place. Next up, tomorrow night on the 13th, we have a workshop with the Common Council regarding the amusement train going forward from that, and to make a final decision of what services we may or may not have with that. So that'll be at 5 o'clock tomorrow with the Common Council prior to the council meeting. And then last but not least, the winter worked with us so far. We've actually been able to have ice skating down at the Menominee Park Zoo Lagoon this year on weekends so far. It was nice having some stuff available during the holiday weeks. Right now this week, we're actually going to be shut down through Friday due to this warm spell, just to give a chance here to rebuild some things. Hopefully this weekend we'll be back up as the weather changes again for the cold to work for that. But we do have the warming house services during the weekends at the Lakefly Cafe from 12 to 4 with some light concessions. Dr. Eric's Skate Club provides us a free rentals down there, and people to come down to the zoo and have fun out there and warm up on the weekends is good. But we are also open daily from 10 to 2 weekdays. People can come in and use the facilities, but we are just don't have the Lakefly open during the weekdays from that end. So that's what I have to report for you right now, but if there's any questions, anything else, I can definitely entertain that too.
All right. Travis, what do you have for us?
I actually have a fair amount of stuff tonight. So I'm going to dive in, go a little bit out of order on the agenda. Start out with our pruning and assessment cycle. So right now we are currently over on the west side of 41 doing all of that stuff. Right now we have typically 2 or 3 crews, like Chad was saying. it's our crews work together quite well, as I have 3 arborists on staff, and so we utilize some of the park staff during the winter to help us out with our pruning cycles. And so right now they are over, like I said, I want to say on the west side of Oakwood, right around going through that neighborhood. They will slowly work their way through the rest of it. Throughout the pruning cycle, they are going through and prune, assess. They don't necessarily touch every tree, but they do look at every tree. And there are roughly 2,000 trees in every cycle. So the city has a 5-year pruning cycle. We usually take about a fifth or we try to get about a fifth of the city throughout the winter months.
You guys are over in my neighborhood right now, and it looks fantastic. I meant to send you a message, yeah.
I appreciate that. They do a very good job. We do have some skilled arborists. So pruning cycle. And to quickly touch on our urban forestry strategic plan, which is part of our urban forestry, Wisconsin DNR urban forestry grant from 2025. We are getting close to the end. We're looking, I do have a vision statement for it that I'd like to kind of float past you guys, just get your take on it. And the vision statement would be to grow a symbiotic tree community, which is basically meaning that we're building and stewarding an urban forest with trees, people, wildlife, the city infrastructure, all coming together to kind of benefit each other. So I'll take any comments on that. Otherwise, that will probably end up being put into the strategic plan as a vision statement. For our state of the urban forest, that's still kind of in draft form, but what I can tell you is we have approximately 90 different species with 50 different genera and 20 different families. So we have a fairly diverse in that sense. I don't want to say negative, but 57% of those of our population is made up by crabapples, maples, and Japanese tree lilacs. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what's going to happen is as those start to mature out and decline, we're still going to plant maples and crabapples and Japanese tree lilacs. We're just not going to plant as many of them so that the numbers start to even out again. We have a large percentage of young street trees, which in relatively good condition, which is nice because now we can go through and training prune them and work on the structure now, as opposed to coming back and working with them 20 years from now, where you have a lot of codominant stems or included bark or other defects where it's a lot harder to and takes more time to prune them. If we get them done right now, pruning will end up being more efficient later on down the road. With this, we are also going through and they've made some recommendations for Chapter 26, our Trees and Vegetations Code. That's still in draft as well. Some of the recommendations that I couldn't tell you about would be that they recommend that we go through and we combined all of our tree-related codes throughout all the municipality, or all the municipal codes. So that would be obviously all of Chapter 26, but they're the ones that are in, I want to say, I forget what chapter it is, sorry, but the street reconstruction codes, the development codes, all of those, so that they're centralized. While I was going through this, I noticed that there were some discrepancies between some of the different codes, where one code would give a height of such and such inches, and the other code would give a completely different height. So if we can condense it, get them all under one, they'll just be a lot easier to manage. And then developing a penalty system. Chapter 26 has one, but it's fairly weak. And just a couple of other little things on that. So next we will dive into Tree City USA. Sorry. So this year is kind of exciting. It is Oshkosh's 45th year as a Tree City USA. With that, I'm just trying to plan a couple of bigger extra special events. One of them being I'm collaborating with the Oshkosh Public Library to start a Read with an Arborist series, which is going to start the Thursday before, well, I shouldn't say the Thursday before, on April 16th. Arbor Day being April 24th. But so what that's going to do is I'm going to go read A Tree is Nice, which is a nice children's picture book. And then we'll have some posters about to get some engagement, just for discussion on what trees provide, what people think is most important that they provide. Maybe have a small discussion with that. Do a mini seedling, how to plant some seedlings, a little demonstration possibly. And then just to tie it all into Arbor Day, I have ordered some seedlings and we will be giving away some seedlings at the end of it. I'm hoping they get there or get here by then. If not, we'll figure a way to get them to everybody. But so we'll be handing out some seedlings for that, and then so we are planning to continue that series, probably once a month. Maybe go skip some of the summer months and then pick back up in fall, in September, October, somewhere in there. But another thing with Tree City is we applied for the Growth Award this year. So the Growth Award is for communities that go above and beyond the minimum requirements for Tree City. So it has to do a lot. There are many different avenues or aspects that you can get points for it. Ours were mainly through staff training and a couple of different planting projects that we've done last year. And then I know I've reported on this one before. This time it is official. They have plaques, banners, all that kind of good stuff. Oshkosh North is a Tree Campus USA K through 12. So I'm extremely excited about that. They will be maintaining it, so Oshkosh North will be also holding an Arbor Day event every year on their own now, hopefully. So all of this kind of ties into one of the new programs that I'm sort of developing. I don't need any recommendations. I'm basically just looking for some input from you on this one. And it would be a tree or a neighborhood association recognition program. It's basically modeled after Tree City USA. There's 5 different requirements that they would need, that a neighborhood association would need to qualify for it or to get the status. And for the recognition, we would put their name, put a little badge on the neighborhood association website. I would probably have a place on the forestry website that would name them. Later on, possibly in the future, we could also look at street signs or some sort of signage that they could put around their neighborhood. That wouldn't necessarily have to be right now. But this is all kind of leading up to, for 5 years from now in 2031, when we have our 50th Tree City USA, so that we can have a very large community-wide Arbor Day celebration and make it be something big and spectacular. So
Yes, big and spectacular.
I like big and spectacular.
Yes.
So the criteria that I have for it right now is they'd need a tree committee. So I'm still trying to figure out if that's something that we want every neighborhood association to have one, or if we can just collectively have one with the alliance and have that be good enough. But they would need to host an educational program in the neighborhood. Sometimes that might be me, sometimes that might just be, something that I would approve and they can do something else. But have an educational program, some sort of a training, if it's a hands-on pruning workshop or mulching or what have you, just something so that they're educating their neighborhood. And then with that, doesn't necessarily have to be related, but also have a hands-on service project. So if that might be something that they work with the city on to improve one of the green spaces in their neighborhood that they like, or it might be also working with some of the private homeowners on their property, just having some sort of a service project that they work on. A good example of that would be over on Quarry Park with the Quarry Gold, the marigolds, where they planted 600 feet of marigolds in a small terrace that was too small to plant anything else. So something like that. The fourth one would obviously be hold an Arbor Day celebration of some kind in their neighborhood association. And 5, just to kind of help make this a little bit more sustainable, to help with material procurement and possibly some funding or what have you, but also partner with a 501c3 of some sort, just to give it a little bit of stability so that some of the projects that they have, they're able to maintain and continue with. But yeah, I think somehow I covered everything that I needed to cover.
All fun stuff.
All right, thank you, Travis. Well, looking like there is no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Unless Chad has something to say, sorry.
I don't have anything further.
All right.
So moved.
Second?
Perfect.
Well, thank you all. We are done for the evening.
Yes,
Have a
thank you.
great night.